Perdana Menteri Inggris, Sir Keir Starmer, menegaskan bahwa Inggris tidak akan terseret ke dalam konflik dengan Iran. Dalam sesi Commons Liaison Committee di London pada Senin, Starmer menekankan bahwa Inggris hanya melakukan tindakan pertahanan kolektif, tetapi ini bukan perang kita. Sementara itu, Presiden AS Donald Trump mengaku telah berbicara dengan Iran dan menunda serangan terhadap pembangkit listrik Iran selama 5 hari. Dan Trump memberi Iran tenggat 48 jam untuk
quite a lot of assets to the region. Just to reassure you, radar systems were pre-deployed, counter-drone systems were redeployed, F-35 jets were deployed in greater number than were already there, ground-based air defence was deployed, 400 extra UK personnel were deployed, and autonomous mine hunting systems were deployed. So far as HMS Dragon is concerned, it normally takes 6 weeks for the loading onto and deployment of the relevant capability onto the Dragon. That was done within 6 days with 22-hour working days, both with our service personnel and civilian personnel working together. But there was a lot of pre-deployment. What I said at the Munich conference is that clearly we're going to have to go further and faster. Obviously I'll set out what I mean by that in due course.
But this smacks of a lack of war-fighting mentality that reaches right across the government, which is what we address in this paper about war-fighting readiness, where we are not at. And the Chiefs of Staff are saying we need to be ready for war. So when are we going to be prepared, and prepared for what?
We are finalising the investment plan. That sits with the Strategic Defence Review.
It smacks of an enormous complacency.
Well, this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government and the stripping out and following out of our armed forces.
We've had 18 months
Copyright
to deal
Ben
with that.
Wallace, who was the
I'm
Defence Secretary.
not making a party political point.
Well, honestly,
I agree with Ben
14
Wallace.
years of underinvestment, 18 months for Labour government.
But take drones, for example.
We're picking up the underinvestment of your government.
Last one, Mr.
The whole concept of warfighting has changed in the last 12 months.
I understand that.
I was in Ukraine very recently, and the Ukrainian armed forces are mystified and want to offer help, as they are offering help to the Gulf states, to the NATO frontline states and to NATO JEF about how to prepare for drone warfare.
Yes.
This is being held up by the lack of the defence industrial plan.
No, it's not. I had President Zelensky in last week. I speak to him very, very regularly. He was in last week for some time. I spoke exactly about this to him. I've been to see for myself on a number of occasions in Kyiv their capability. We are putting in backfill to that, working with them on industrial capability to produce drones with them. And I discussed this very issue with him last week. He did not, just for the record, he did not say that anything that they want to do is being held up by anything the UK is doing. On the contrary, he sees us as their foremost ally, and I'm very pleased that we've been able to achieve that, actually on a cross-party basis.
How many defence reviews do you think took place during the Second World War?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that
the answer is none. Well, because when you are at war, you get on with it. You don't wait around for a plan.
The US government has significant powers over these companies' supply chains, as well as critically the data that they store, even if they store it here in the UK. So are we not dangerously over-reliant on a small number of US companies for our civil technology infrastructure? And doesn't that undermine UK tech and constrain our policy independence more widely?
I don't think we're over-reliant, but I certainly take up the challenge you put to me that we need to have more domestic capability. I think in relation to the US, when it comes to defence and security, obviously we've had a decades-long relationship with the US when it comes to defence and security and intelligence. That is hugely important for our country and shouldn't be underestimated. And I still firmly believe that we can have that relationship with the US and a stronger relationship with the EU, and that the constant demands on me to choose one or the other are wrong when it comes to defence, security and intelligence. It is having both relationships that's kept us safe for 80 plus years, and we hold that very closely and very dear. Just on Iran, the principles I've applied throughout is that for any UK action, there must be a lawful basis and a viable and thought-through plan. That is why we didn't join the original offensive strikes. It is why we did take defensive action, collective self-defensive action, on our own behalf when it came to the work that we're doing with our allies in the region, taking missiles out that are coming from Iran. It's also why we allowed our bases to be used for the purposes of collective self-defence. But that's an important divide. So collective self-defence, yes, and we've taken appropriate action, but this is not our war, and we are not getting dragged into this war. So,
jelajahi cara baru mendapatkan informasi. Download MetroTV Extend sekarang.